good morning. Good to hear from you.
Good morning, Jack. We lost a good friend, bud.
Yes, we did. We all lost a very good friend in Carl Davis. We got the word the other day. I know he'd been, struggling for a while, and boy, what a guy. I'm going to take you back. You were the athletic director, and you brought Coach Davis in your last year as a head coach, and he was an assistant in the 69-70 season. Tell me how this all came about and how you got Carl to come here.
Well, in 68-69, Tony Bernardi was the assistant, and he decided that he wasn't going to travel the winters as a part-time coach at IUP anymore, so we needed a defensive coach. And, of course, I knew Carl from all the way back when their team, Irwin, was runner-up in the state in Class B, and they lost the championship game by 1 point, and he played for Lyman Stow, who you know is a great coach in that area. So we go way back to there. And then in 69-70, I knew about Carl and how good he was in Jeanette, and he sent me some players from that area, Kalp, Zolochik, and a number of guys. So I knew about Carl, and I knew how good he could coach defense. So we hired him, and at that time, I had to give up basketball because you could not be AD and basketball coach, and I decided to take the AD's job. So we bring Carl in, and in 70-71, he goes 24-4. He takes us to Kansas City, first time since, I think, 58 when Frank Signetti was on the team.
Right, yeah.
And then a couple of years later, he takes us to Kansas City again, 73-74. And he takes us to the Elite Eight, down to the last 8 teams, which was a great accomplishment. You know what Kansas City was in those days, 32 teams, and you whittle it down to the winner. So Carl did a fantastic job quickly at IUP. As you know, he loved basketball, and Carl was a great family man who was a great Christian also, very active in his church, and raised a wonderful family. So that's how it all started, Jack.
Yeah. Wow.
Carl.
And the rest is history through the 1970s. You brought up that he was a great Christian. A lot of people, I don't know if they know this or not, he had a great singing voice, didn't he?
Oh, he was outstanding.
Yeah.
Carl told me he started Tarkio College in Missouri as a music major. and then minored in phys ed, I think, and then eventually majored in phys ed and got his master's. And then, of course, in addition to coaching basketball at IUP, he also taught health and phys ed. And to go beyond basketball, you know that when Owen Doherty got sick, we didn't have a coach.
Yeah.
So Carl came to me and said, Herm, if you need a coach, I'll help. I'll do it. I said, will you become the head coach? And he said, sure. Well, he coached 3 years, and he took us to the playoffs in a PSAC 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years in a row.
Accomplishment.
Yeah, I know. I traveled
and
with him.
And that was baseball, of course.
Baseball, yeah. Traveled with him several times down to Florida on those trips, and a lot of people forget that aspect of it. In addition, Herm Sledzik with us here, Hall of Fame coach, in addition to what we just talked about with Carl, he was a community guy, though. A lot of times you might get coaches who come in and they don't become a part of the community, but everybody knew him. He went out and raised. How about that trip to New Orleans where he had to raise all those funds to play a couple of teams down there, Nicholls State and St. Xavier?
That was unbelievable, and that's what Carl did. He had to go out and meet the people because we didn't have money in those days. If you wanted any scholarship money, all you had was work study. We gave him work study. They could give the kid a little job. If you wanted any additional money to travel or do other things, you had to go raise it. Fortunately, he had Ron Rubel at McDonald's for that trip to New Orleans. So that was an outstanding trip. And you, of course, would know as much about Carl as any of us because you traveled with him and you knew him and the players, and you just know what kind of a guy he was. Anybody he met, they liked Carl.
Oh, absolutely.
And Dick Fulton, even Dick Fulton, who raised money for his own team, raised money for Carl.
Amazing. A couple of stories here, Herm. I just want to bring this about. Back in the late 70s, I get a call from Jed Weisberger at the Indiana Gazette. It's a Sunday night. It's raining. I'm preparing to come to work, get my clothes out for the next day to come into work on Monday. He said, Coach Davis, Coach Beck are going down to try to recruit Ron McNabb. You want to go? So I said, sure, why not? So here we are sitting in the living room, the four of us, with the McNabb family, and there's a knock at the kitchen door. And Mr. McNabb said, excuse me for a moment. He goes to the kitchen door, he talks for a couple of minutes, he comes back. What was that all about? Oh, that was Ron Galbraith from Westminster trying to recruit McNabb. Well,
I remember that story well.
And we got him.
You got him. Carl would get him.
Yeah. And then, of course, Herm, you were involved, too. A few years ago, we got an opportunity. Bob Johnston organized that luncheon with Jerry Conboy of Point Park, Joe DiGregorio Clarion, Dave Rooney of Westminster, you, Coach Davis, Coach Beck. What a luncheon that was, huh?
That was fantastic. I showed that one to Calipari when we played them this year. And he asked if I could get him a copy of that, which I haven't done yet. So I still have to do it. But he signed the picture.
Oh, that's great.
With his old coach
absolutely.
on it. Yeah, that was a great time. And, of course, Carl had a great relationship with the other coaches. He battled them, but they all respected him. Jack, the other thing I really remember about Carl, we ran those camps, Carl was a fantastic coach of the fundamentals of basketball. He loved coaching little kids, teaching them how to dribble, shoot, rebound, box out, do all those little things that you often forget about in camps. And any time I meet people that went to our camps, they talk about those. They remember them. So
yep.
He really made an impact in the community. He made an impact at IUP and in the Irwin area. He well respected. Were you at the when they honored his 1950 team that lost by 1 point? They inducted the whole team and Carl into the Hall of Fame.
No, I missed that one. I missed that one. I do recall you brought that up. Dale Schaefer, who of course was a prof at IUP, was a big basketball fan of Carl and his teams, was on the Kutztown team that played Carl, right?
Yes. Yes. Ronnie Weidenheimer, who was my teammate at Penn State the last 2 years, scored the winning basket to beat Carl's team. And Carl, he said he'll never forgive me for having him as a teammate.
Oh, well, if I have the facts straight here, Carl became the head coach at Jeanette when he was 23 years old.
Yes.
That's amazing.
He was very young. I don't know the exact age, but he was very young.
Yeah.
And, of course, Lyman Style always really praised Carl. Anytime I've heard, him at different times. He coached against you, I guess, did he? Lyman Style?
Yes, down there at Irwin.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
He always praised Carl, and Carl was his captain of that team. So, that shows you how much respect he had on his high school team.
Herm, as being the athletic director, too, in scheduling, Carl played anybody, Pitt, Duquesne, Penn State. Remember when Pitt came up here to play IUP here at the Memorial Fieldhouse?
Yep.
That's unheard of.
Well, he and Tom Beck did it to raise money.
Yeah.
And they would play anybody, and they didn't care. And they did a good job against them, as you recall. We almost beat Penn State. We almost beat Pitt.
Yeah, do recall. Herm, thank you for the time. It's wonderful. We could go on and on, but we just want to remember a great individual in Carl Davis. So we, feel for his family and for all his friends. And the services will be next Wednesday. The viewing is next Tuesday at Snyder Funeral Home in Irwin from 2 to 4 and 6 to 8. And then next Wednesday will be the service.
Yes, thoughts and prayers with Carl and his family.
Yeah, we do. Herm, thanks for talking with us. Always wonderful. We'll see you soon, all right?
Thanks, Jack.
You bet. Hall of Fame coach, there he is, Herm Sledzik. Remember